Hey, how's it going, guys? So I'm releasing the DSG two-wheel drive adapter kit for the GA16 engine. So that's the block that you would probably be familiar with. There is one small trimming required on this block. If you look carefully, you can see it's just that small little notch at that point over there. Yeah, tiny little notch. And then if we look at the components, so we got your main adapter. You got a two-piece crank adapter. Here you will reuse your crank flywheel bolts. Just make sure that the length of your bolts are appropriate for the thickness of this plate. Make sure that the bolts are not bottoming out into the crank. In the upper plate, those are the bolts that connect this plate to that plate. And then the flywheel sits on here with the flywheel bolts that should come with the new flywheel. And we got your hardware for your gearbox, for your engine, and for the mid shaft bracket. And then we got a mid shaft which has got the seal nut and the lock nut. And then you will reuse the spring and cup that came off the original DSG flange, output flange. You slip that onto here, and once your shaft is fitted, you'll start to turn the seal nut up and put pressure against the spring. Once it starts to touch the spring, you can go another 7 millimeters. That's how much compression is needed. And then put some sealer behind the seal nut, and then bring the lock nut up against it, just to lock it up. Then the spline on this end is you'll use the Honda K series right front inner CV joint to sit on there. And then you obviously would need custom side shafts either way. On the left side of the gearbox, you would need to use a VW pancake style, 100 millimeter pancake style CV joint. So that's it for the components. So that's the adapter plate fitted. And that's the first crank adapter where you use your original bolts. And then the second adapter, which you then use the supplied bolts. Over here you can now see the notch better now that was needed, and this is to clear the output casting on the gearbox. Yeah, I'm just showing you that the flywheel sitting onto the flywheel adapter. And then finally we have the assembly together. Just take you around there. So as you can see from this angle, you can see the bottom of the engine sump and the gearbox sump is pretty much in one plane. So when you fit the engine back in, the gearbox should be also in its proper position for oiling. Okay, and then you can have a look at the mid shaft. So this is on this particular swap, this little protrusion on the gearbox doesn't have to be milled off. and hence why I spoke about that little notch on the block that needs to be made. This is your seal nut, which will turn into the gearbox. Once you reach spring contact, you go another 7 millimeters in. Then you put some sealer behind the seal nut, and then bring the lock nut up against it and lock them up. And that spline on the end of the shaft is for the Honda K series CV joint. And just give you another angle here. Yeah, and that's about it. That's the GA16 two-wheel drive DSG adaption kit for the dq250 gearbox.